Well, my name's Merlin, and I want to thank you for taking a couple minutes to check out the video. I want to encourage anybody that is considering making their own endless pool, quotes, to do that. Okay, here's how it all happened. You can see here, this is a picture. I went down to the local lumber yard, bought treated lumber. I wanted to use treated in case there was leaks or anything, but I was too cheap to get treated plywood because it was so expensive, so I actually coated that with kills. I'll show you that in a little while. I went down to a local Salvation Army or Goodwill, whatever you want to call it, for home building products, used stuff you can buy cheap. Got this Styrofoam to go on the bottom, the sides, and the top, and I got it for about probably 25 to 30% of what it would have cost me, so that was a blessing. And this here is the first stage where we were laying out the floor. I put 2x4 on the bottom, and then you can see the 2x6 coming up on the one side. A twofold purpose for that: I wanted to be able to get the insulation under there, and also I wanted those to be anchor points for the braces for the wall studs on each side to give that support, and it did work well. Here we are putting up a wall. This is my father-in-law. I want to thank him so much for his expertise. He helped a lot in holding things, and he was a builder for many years. He built churches and hospitals and many things, so his expert advice is well taken and well appreciated. Let's put it this way: if it wasn't for him, my pool would be out there and it would be working, but it sure wouldn't be as square and pretty. So thank you, Doug. Appreciate you. One thing I want to say, I went on 2-foot centers. That was a mistake because I ended up getting some bulging walls I had to fix. So my suggestion is go with, and the reason I did that because the Styrofoam was 2 foot and I was too lazy to cut it down and everything, but if you go with 16-inch centers, you'll be better off. And then I actually used 3 plates around the top, and that still wasn't enough. It still came weak at the longest side. Ended up having to put some steel beams along there, but I would suggest getting the metal stripping and putting a few of those around the top. I think it would be fine. That's actually what Endless Pool does. Okay, this is, and I built it to where one day, if I ever decided to, I could move it out on a slab behind our house where I was planning on building a sunroom. So I made it where it could be taken in half and hauled out there, but so we built this half, and then I moved it back in the corner, moved that wall that you see, and it ended up back in the corner. But here we just have a brace across the top to keep things from warping. The one challenge we had is, because a lot of distractions, it ended up taking me probably 8 or 10 months to do this. And when you buy treated lumber that's still kind of wet, then as it's drying, it starts warping and stuff. So this did cause some issues. It made getting things square and plumb a challenge, but I still think it was a wise thing to use the treated lumber in case there's ever a leak. And if I had to do it all over again, I probably would go ahead and get treated plywood too. I'll show you what I did instead, but I think I would recommend the treated plywood. Here is moved over in the corner where it's ultimately going to sit. And another angle. Here we're building the other half, identical, jointed it at the center. Again, that was kind of a mistake because that made a weak spot along there. Ended up having to put a metal beam over there on the side where my father-in-law is standing. Some more shots of that as we're building the sides. There's the whole thing. We still don't have all the insulation. What it looks like inside. I got in there with the sander. I puttied every little nook and cranny, tried to make it smooth. I didn't want my liner to be torn in any way. And then I began cutting the jets. I found they're called river jets. They are pretty pricey, a couple $100 each. But this is really ideal because the little round jets pushing water at you isn't ideal as having the wide jets. It just gives you a wall of water coming at you a little better than a bunch of round ones. Okay, on inside to seal it, I used Kills. It was a lot cheaper than a sealant. Figured it would do a pretty good job, so I put a good heavy coat of that on there. Hopefully we'll see down the road if I ever have a leak if that worked or not. And then started cutting holes for all the drains. I'll explain how all those worked and how I set it up towards the end. You can see the drain holes. And then what I decided to do around the top is I had a 2x8 cap, and then I put a 2x12 around it just to have something to sit on. And then I went to that same used home goods place and found this awesome thick heavy duty canvasy rubber like upholstery that I wrapped that top 2x12 with. So I tucked it under and screwed everything down, and then I wrapped it and then tucked the other side. This is more in the process of doing that. Okay, I borrowed this. My neighbor had this little ladder to get in his swimming pool, and it was so handy because I kept having to climb in and out a million times that you can imagine. So that made it go quick and easy. Which, if a person wasn't going to put a deck around, actually might be a solution to enter and exit your pool. Here we got the top wrapped. Some more shots of that. There again are the holes for the drains to feed the pumps. While we're looking at this shot, I'll explain. There's basically 3 systems going, one for each of the big pumps. I have 2 5-horse pumps to go to the big jets, and then I had a 1-horse pump to do the circulation and the heating. Those 3 holes on the side all tie together. I'll show you the PVC here in a minute. Those are 3 that are feeding one 5-horse pump, and then there's 3 on the other side feeding the other. It seems like overkill, but if you don't get enough water to your pumps, you're not going to get the kind of current you want. And I'll tell you more about where I got those pumps and stuff here in a little bit. Came across a guy that was very helpful named Joseph. This is one of the drains that went in the side, and you can see I siliconed it well. I put my liner in, and then very carefully with a X-Acto knife cut out each hole, and then siliconed it well, and put a big bolt-like thing, plastic bolt that goes on the back side of those screws or the threads on the drain. Some more shots. You can see I'm starting to get some plumbing done down there at the bottom. At this point, put in a track around the inside to hang the liner from. Again, endless pool's great, not cutting them down at all, but they are expensive, and I called them to order a liner, and they wouldn't sell it to me because I never bought an endless pool from them. I guess they don't want anybody building their own. Imagine that. So anyway, I got on the internet, looked around, and found a place. Got one just as thick, just as good. And it appears to be just as good. And it was less than half the price. Instead of $700 or $800, it was, I think, $350 or something. So that was a blessing. Here I am starting to hang the liner on the inside. There's Grandpa helping me. They're coming on around the side. There's just a little tunnel channel that on the liner itself. There's a nipple sticking out that just hangs into that channel. Getting closer here. And now it comes the time to start getting all the kinks out of the liner. Later I found out somebody said you could take a vacuum from one of the outside drain holes, and it works really well to remove all the wrinkles and stuff, but I didn't know that. Here's what I did. I took my PVC pipe, put it around the edges, and got some books out of my warehouse, heavy boxes of books, and let those kind of stretch it. I put duct tape on the ends of the pipe because I didn't want to cut into my liner, and let the PVC, weighted PVC, stretch the liner in place. It did a pretty good job. I do have one place where I got a kink in my liner, which I'm not too happy with, but hopefully eventually I can get that worked out. Some more shots. This is where I took the X-Acto knife, cut out to put a drain in. There's my river jets. And those, by the way, are adjustable 20 degrees up and down. So depending on the depth, how far from the top of the pool your water is, that changes a little bit from time to time based on evaporation and stuff. So that gives you a little leverage to point your jets to be in the right spot for you to swim the most ideal. Getting closer, you can see I've got all the drains in here. Okay, the plumbing. So here, first I want to say I spent several days running all over town looking for 2-inch, because a lot of the spa parts are 2-inch. Well, all the lumber yards had 1 and 3 and 4-inch PVC, but I couldn't find much 2-inch, especially all the 90s and 45s and all this. Best thing to do is just go online and order, have them shipped to you, and be done with it. I wasted a lot of time and money. Anyway, you can see the 3 drains, which is going to wind around to the pump on the side on one of the swim jets. Here's another shot of that. Okay, here you can see, basically in the center there you can see the heater, and just out of view, further up the screen is the filter, and then the pump that's pushing it through here back into the pool. But that system is totally independent of my other 2 systems. I have to have a system for each of the 5-horse pumps, and then the system for the drain and heater. This is a shot where I started putting on some of the siding. I was very blessed. Ended up with a total of about, I'm estimating, 6,500, maybe 6,500 in my whole pool. Now that doesn't count the decking. The decking, I was so blessed. A neighbor, they were tearing out some horse stalls in a barn, and I got this beautiful tongue and groove, wonderful wood, thousands of dollars worth to do this beautiful deck, or I never would have been able to afford to do what I did. But so the cost I'm quoting you is for the pool itself and all the pumps and all that, and that was a huge blessing. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Here you can see the filter. By law you have to have 2 drains more than 3 foot apart feeding your pump, because somebody could drown, a small kid that, got it next to the intake. It could hold them in place and they couldn't get loose. So if you have 2 of them 3 foot apart, it makes it safer, or one will kick in if the other's clogged, and it'll release the suction on the one that would be dangerous. And there in the back you can see where I'm coming up. I went through my pumps, and then I'm coming up on a 45 into the river jets. And here's what the plumbing looks like. There, closest to us, you see the 2-inch drains. The 3 of them on each side are feeding the I believe that's 3-inch. I can't remember if it's 3 or 4-inch pipe that's going in to a pump just before it goes up and into one of the river jets, and then the same thing's happening from the other side. And then the other system for the heating and circulation and filtering, you can see the 2 jets teed together there. I've got a faucet bib there on it to where I can drain. And something I want to tell you, everywhere you see those gateway type valves up at the top, put those or the ball type joints everywhere, before and after every pump, before and after everything, because in the process of getting it up and going, you're going to have leaks and stuff, and you don't want to have to drain your whole pool to fix those. And later, when you go to replace a pump or empty your filter or whatever, you want to be able to just shut the water off and do it without having to drain your pool. So, lesson learned, do that. Anyway, that you can see how the two outside systems are straddling the inside system. Of course, all this is below deck level, which I'll show you in a minute. Another shot. You can see the two systems. Because I needed my two river jets to be closer, I wasn't able to put them at the same distances, so I had one kind of out a little further than the other. Another shot. By the way, the less degree turns, the more water will be pushed through with the least resistance, so you're going to get more power from your pumps. That's why I did the 45-degree angles wherever I could. There is a 90 going into it, and there's some 90s on the side, but anywhere you can, if you do 45s, you're going to be better off preserving your power. And again, put those gate type valves. You can see the handles there. Put them everywhere. They're not cheap, but it's money well spent for sure. Another angle. My plumbing isn't the best. I probably went way overkill on all the glue and everything, but I didn't want to have to deal with that. And I never had any leaks from a PVC perspective, but I dealt with a bunch of leaks where there was rubber seals coming out of the pumps up there at the top. Ended up playing with those for a few days, but eventually got the kinks worked out. Another shot where it's coming out of the circulation pump and going into the filter. There's my power source. I had an electrician. I did all this according to code. I called the local county, and they said as long as I didn't have any permanent plumbing, that the only thing I needed to permit was electrical. And so had an electrician come put this up. It's up high because my deck's going to be along the line as you see on the white wall there. This is the side of the heater. Okay, now I'll tell you about AccuraSpa.com. Found out about these guys. They sell wholesale pumps and spa stuff to not only spa manufacturers, but people like you and me. Ended up getting all my pumps, the lighting, the heater, an electronic module that makes it all communicate for about $2,600, $26 or $27. Everything that I received, if I would have bought a kit, like there's something out there, Badu jets, which are wonderful. I'm not saying anything bad about them. They're just expensive. It was going to be like $5,000-$6,000 just for the two jets and the hook and the plastic things that go in the wall, and that's all I have in my whole pool. So this was a huge blessing. I worked with a wonderful guy named Joseph. He got on the phone. We talked for several hours. I'm sure I was a pain in the rear to him, but he was very kind. Worked with me, explained everything. I was ready to pay that electrician to put in another meter box. It was going to be a couple $1,000s because I thought I was going to need a 50 or 60 amp breaker for each pump and for the heaters and so forth. And he said, "Oh, you don't need that. You just need one 60 amp breaker." He said, I programmed this module on the wall so if your heater's running, it won't, once you turn on your pumps to swim, the heater won't be allowed to heat. So therefore you share a breaker of 60 amps. So that was a blessing. Anyway, AccuraSpa.com. Encourage you to ask for Joseph or somebody there, and they will get you fixed up. Awesome. Again, I appreciate all that he did. Here you see I'm putting some water in there. I'm getting ready to test the jets. I just needed enough water to get above the intakes and wanted to make sure everything didn't leak. And here are my jets pushing water. like Niagara Falls, let me tell you, it is pushing about 500 to 1,000 gallons a minute through each pump. And obviously you wouldn't want to swim in that environment right there, but once the pool's full, it's just pushing water that's already in the pool, so you don't get near the turbulence if you're back a ways. If you're swimming, 3 foot from them, yeah, it's turbulent, but if your pool's big enough, then it's not an issue. That's something else I want to talk about. Is I built mine 4 foot tall, 8 foot wide, 16 foot long, and I kind of just did that for convenience because that's the size of the plywood and the different wood that I used. But there's pros and cons. If money's a big issue, you could get by with making one 8 by 12 by 3.5, probably 3.5 to 4 feet deep. Be a lot less water to heat. You could get by with one jet. 1 5-horse pump and 1 jet probably. It would be, I don't know. I'm glad I went with 2, but I think you probably could make it work with 1. For a while I was kind of regretting making it so big because it didn't sound big, but once I got it in the corner of my building, it's huge. But now I'm glad because my wife and I can both swim at once. She's down at the other end of the pool hanging onto the side and kicking and swimming. Or I can swim at the front and she can swim at the back. So that was a blessing. Plus, again, this can be used. I'll talk more about that in the little video at the end. But it's really, if you make it this size, it's got 3 functions. It can be used as just an indoor pool. It could be used as a swim spa by turning on the jets, or you can open the Ventura jets, which I put a little intake valve to where it'll let air in, and it makes it real foamy like a hot tub. And you can turn up the heat. Being this big, I have by the way, 11 kilowatt heater. Endless pool only comes with 5.5. Endless pool comes with no insulation at all. They recommend putting a 2-inch styrofoam in the walls, depending on where you might be in the country, the climate. I've put 4-inch all the way around, underneath and on top. And so far, my utility bills, I've had it going about 2 months. It was in the cold of the winter. I'm in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon area. If you want to look up at the internet and see what the average temperature was, it was probably, I'm guessing, it would drop to the 20s and 30s at night. It was pretty cold, and during the day, maybe 40s and 50s. I would say we averaged maybe 40 degrees. And it's in a metal building, but there's no heat in it. There's an open vent ridge around the top, so it gets pretty cool in there. It's not as bad as outside, but there's no heat or anything. And it's costing me about $100 for those 2 months, or each month, to heat it. We had it like a hot tub for a week around Christmas, so everybody's in there having a good time. That probably took it up for another $20-$30, but I'm hoping in the summer it'll come down to more like 50, and in the winter maybe 80 to 100. And I'm all electric, by the way, no gas, which if you have gas, they say that's a cheaper way to go. And the ultimate way to go is with a heat pump, but you're looking at $1,800 up to $2,500, depending on what level you go and what ambient temperature that it can work at. That's the ideal way to go, but it's a lot of money, and so I elected not to go that way. Here you can see we're putting on some siding. We're starting to make it look a little better. Here's where we're siding the front. Starting to build the deck around. Got a thermal blanket for keeping the sawdust and stuff out of there. And building the steps on the side. Got an 8-foot deck coming out the side where we can hang out. Again, I was blessed to have all this wood given to me, probably $2,000 or $3,000 worth. So that was not included in my total. I would say the pool itself cost, with the heater and pumps and everything, about $6,500. That's what I have invested, and then another. Actually, there was a lot of screws and stuff that cost a lot when I did the deck, so it might even be closer to $6,000 for the pool itself, but the deck was not included in that. And I wanted it to be as, hold in heat the best it can, and so this is the 4-inch lid I made. Basically, I took some commercial grade metal studs and cut them and bent them, made a box, put my 2 foot by 4 foot with. Then I had 2 of them going up the center, facing out, and that kind of served like a groove to slide all of my styrofoam in. And then I wrapped it with the tarp and then put hooks to where I could winch it up. And a little. Okay, now I'm excited to show you the end project. Here's the deck. Surrounds the pool. I kind of like the idea and give it a little character to have one side you could sit on. Then I put steps at each end. And then it could be used like a regular pool at the back side. I really want it to be efficient, so as I mentioned before, I put 4 inches of styrofoam on the bottom, on the sides, and also on the top. I'm making this lid. And I've also got a solar blanket on it. The lid goes up by a winch, which I have a handle. The winch is up in the attic up there. And I have a handle here. See all my cables running through the trusses. And all I do is push this button and it winches up. And it goes right on up close to the ceiling, out of the way. And then I have a solar blanket on it. This is a 16 mil thermo blanket, which obviously we're not outside, but it still keeps in the evaporative heat. So all I do is roll like this. Kind of getting kinked on the end here, but that's okay. And now we're ready to swim. Turn on my jets, controller here on the wall. I'm swimming at 88 degrees, call me a wimp. I know most people swim at 84 or 85, but it gets kind of chilly in this building. So I have 2 speeds. I can put both pumps on low, which my wife likes. Or I can step them both up to high. And there's where I swim. It's long enough to where I can swim in the middle and be out of the turbulence. If you want a harder workout, obviously you can swim closer to the jets, and if you want to swim slower, you can swim back here. I also utilize some swim fins, that way I catch more water and make myself work harder. And the same with these gloves. They're like web gloves that you can buy and put on your hands. So as you're swimming, you really get a pump in your chest and a hard workout because you're pushing a lot of water. That's what she's like. Got a deck all the way around. Here's my emergency cutoff. Right here, if you want to use it, of course right now it's an exercise pool, right? If you want to use it for a swimming pool, you just turn off the jets. And if you want to use it for a hot tub, you open this vent here, and you've got all the foam you want. You can stand here by the jets and get a massage. I've got a ski handle hooked up here where I can just hang on and let it massage my back. There's also lights in there. We can turn off the lights at night, and when it's cold, there's steam rising. It is pretty big, takes a while to heat. If I want it to be a hot tub, if I know it in the morning, about 10 hours before, I can crank it up to about 100, and by that evening it'll be 100. And we got a big hot tub that holds a lot of people, and it's a lot of fun. And guess what? When you have your family in here, you're getting a lot of quality time because nobody's going to bring their devices in the pool, right? And it doesn't dominate our conversations, or keep away from the conversations, I should say. Also, I put a rope light all the way around the edge, which is kind of cool when it's dark in here. I'll go plug that in to give you an idea of what that's like. This isn't a great way, but you can see the rope lights up here. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to hit the lights. This is my warehouse, by the way. This is where I do the Lord's work. I have the privilege of sharing and selling Bible studies and sharing them over the internet throughout the world. I'm going to tell you more about that in a little bit too. Okay, it's dark. There's the rope lights. Winding around the steps so nobody falls down. And just running all around the edge. And with the lights on in the pool, it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. It's a blessing for our family and our friends. And I've been swimming about 6 weeks in it now. And I've lost about 10 pounds. And this 55-year-old body, it's not what it used to be, but it's probably in better shape already than it was 10 years ago. So praise the Lord. So I want to encourage anybody that's been dreaming about doing this for years and hasn't done it. It is possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm not a professional builder. I'm not a plumber. I know nothing about anything. Though I did get some expert advice from my father-in-law. It's just a blessing.